now political strategist Reed Galen and former chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party, Jennifer Horn.
Jennifer.
Co-founders of the Lincoln Project, and yeah.
Jennifer, what a long, strange trip
we go way back.
Been. Jennifer,
where the hell are we now?
We go way back. I mean, I still, you know, for people that don't know, Jennifer ran the New Hampshire Republican Party. She was, as the Apostle Paul was a Jew's Jew, Jennifer was a Republican's Republican before her conversion. The bright light that came from Donald Trump. Unfortunately, the negative light. So, Jennifer, talk about it, just how disorienting it still is to be somebody that dedicated your entire life to growing the Republican Party in New Hampshire, and now finding yourself looking at a lot of those people like me that you grew up with that are completely fine with a guy 1 week before an election calling for his attorney general to arrest his political opponent like he's in Belarus instead of America.
You know, Joe, I remember standing at Fisher Cat Stadium in Manchester, New Hampshire with you not long before the 2016 election, having this conversation about Donald Trump, and you trying to convince me that he was absolutely, positioned to win, and me fighting it and not wanting to believe what you were telling me. It is unbelievable to me to see the Republican nominee for president standing on a stage conducting himself in the manner that he is, standing up there asking Republican women, suburban women, he's saying, suburban women, please like me. A president who assaults the dignity of women on a daily basis, who assaults the dignity of immigrants and their children on a daily basis, who assaults the dignity of our military. You can go through the list. Suburban women do not need Donald Trump to protect our neighborhoods. That is not an issue that is going to save this campaign. And we see it quite clearly in the movement, in the polling, in a lot of these swing states, where it's not just suburban women who are rejecting Donald Trump now, but it is Republican suburban women who are saying anywhere from 5 to 10% of them in recent polling are choosing Joe Biden over this disgrace of a so-called Republican president.
But Jennifer, how did our party melt down so quickly? How did it go from you and me being in crowds talking about balanced budgets, talking about small government, talking about pushing back on Russia, talking about a strong NATO, talking about a strong Israel? How did it go from that to where we are today, the biggest deficits ever, the biggest debts ever, the biggest federal governments ever, and a pro-Russian president?
It is a total corruption of conservatism and the Republican Party to its core. There is not a single elected Republican left in Washington, D.C., who stands for the principles that you and I used to fight for, Joe, or who in any way stands even just for integrity or character. They have completely sold out to this president. Why is beyond me. There's no good explanation why, but what we know is that what they have done is dangerous, that it poses a direct threat to the future of our country, and that what good Republicans across the country need to do is stand together in this election and completely reject what this president stands for. And from the Lincoln Project's perspective, obviously, we believe the right thing to do is to choose a man who is at his heart a good person, who will put the safety and well-being of our nation and our families above himself. And it should be an easy choice for those people on election day. There's no future for a Republican Party that continues to embrace Donald Trump as their leader.
So, Reed, President Trump's closing argument here appears to be suburban women, please like me because I'm saving your neighborhoods from black and brown people. That's the subtext of what he's saying. This morning, he's saying, hey, if you already voted early, go change your vote if you think you've changed your mind. And now, again, he's writing in all caps that it's all the media. Fake news media all wants to talk about COVID, COVID, COVID. In fact, we're rounding the turn, he says. We objectively are not, as doctor after doctor has told us. So for you at the Lincoln Project, who clearly has gotten under his skin over these last several months, what is your closing argument?
Well, I think, as usual, the president has walked right into the snare that we've set for him, whether or not it was the billboards we put up against Jared and Ivanka last week in Times Square that they immediately reacted to in a way that we could not have been more pleased with, because I'll tell you what it did. It did exactly what we knew it would do, which was it put COVID, it put his family, and it put his failures right back in the middle of this campaign with 7 days to go. And so from our perspective, it should be COVID. We have 220-some thousand people dead in this country, another 7 million sick. Where I live here in Utah, we're now going to start thinking about rationing care. This is what we saw in northern Italy right at the beginning of the pandemic last spring. And so from our perspective, it is about COVID. COVID has changed everything in American life. It's affected the way we work. Millions of people out of work, kids going into school, coming out of school, parents not knowing what to do. I haven't seen my parents since last Thanksgiving. I'm not going to see them this Thanksgiving. And there's more grandparents across the country, tens of millions that are going to feel the same way. So from our perspective, I would say that, yes, it should be about COVID. It will be about COVID, and it won't stop being about COVID until Joe Biden is elected, takes the oath of office, and starts to get this country right back on the path.
Reed, John Heilman's here with a question for you. John?
Hey, Reed, good to see you, man. We talked about this a little bit when I was out there and visited you guys a couple weeks ago, but I think it's good to talk about for as we look kind of, the election's pretty close now, right? And people are starting to set their sights on what happens after, and particularly what happens after with you guys. You came together with a singular focus, which was to try to get rid of Donald Trump. But it seems on the basis of what we've been reading in Axios this morning and other places that you guys have a longer term ambition now that goes beyond, in terms of advocacy, goes beyond just beating Donald Trump and goes to some larger ideological aims, and also commercially has some greater aims for what your future at Lincoln is. So why don't you talk about both those things? Like, what's life after Trump like for the Lincoln Project?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think like the rest of us who are dedicated to beating him, we've got 7 more days to go until Election Day, right? And so every last minute of those 7 days is going to be focused on that. I think that when it comes to what we want to do as an organization past Election Day, when Donald Trump is defeated, remember that last December we said that it's defeating Donald Trump and Trumpism. Trumpism isn't going away. It's a virus within the American body politic, within the Republican Party. And there are a lot of adherents to it. There's going to be a lot of folks who will start the 2024 presidential campaign on the Republican side who will use its ugliness and the heat and what I would call depth of the people on the Republican side to try and get that inside straight on the Republican primary. Donald Trump's going to have his own media company. I think from our perspective, it's going to be about serving as a coalition partner to Joe Biden as he tries to get this country back on its feet. It's going to serve as a convener of organizations. I feel like we've had a real opportunity to bring different groups together, whether or not it's conservatives, whether or not it's progressives and liberals. And I think that we need to start the common conversation in this country. And then I think from our perspective, too, we've got to get back to the fundamentals of democracy, a Voting Rights Act, a Civil Rights Act, election security. And if we can do that and start to push back against what I call the Trump, Bannon, Facebook, OANN, Fox News doom loop through different channels, then that's what we're going to do in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years. This fight's not going to be over anytime soon.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.